Hey everybody, it's Monster Forge again, and I have, to add to my Star Wars retro collection, I have this, this, I don't even really know if it has like a title for it. They used to would have like a name for the set, you know, but this is just basically, most of this is Star Wars action figures that never came out from the original line, which is one of the things I really like with the retro collection, is that they all do characters you never had. You got Dr. Evazan was, you know, Walrus Man's, or Ponda Baba, Walrus Man, his partner in crime in the cantina in the first Star Wars movie. And never had a figure of him before. There was, in the Power of the Force line, there was a Luke Skywalker with a removable helmet in the Stormtrooper disguise, but we never got a Han Solo. And not Power of the Force, the 90, was it 95 or something like that, 94, 95 series of figures that came out. I'm talking about like the vintage, way back in 78 or whatever year they started coming out. But I think the Power of the Force, the last line of those, they were the ones that came with the little collector's coins. I want to say they were like 86 or something, maybe. 85, 86, something like that. They had a Luke Skywalker. And what they did was they scanned the Luke Skywalker figure and did some tweaking with it digitally. He's got like a bent arm, and it's the Han Solo head from one of the old Han Solo figures, and they combined it with the removable helmet. So that's nice. The Yavin victory celebration Luke, I always liked that suit that he wore, and I always imagined that was kind of what he was wearing between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. But he's got his medal with him and his little blaster pistol. The Rebel Fleet Trooper, something that I always wanted because of that opening scene of Star Wars. They were fighting the Stormtroopers in the Blockade Runner. And, of course, the Sand Trooper. That's one of the big ones I've always wanted. When I was a kid, I took, my dad had some black electrical tape and some orange electrical tape, and I made him the little pauldron that he wears on his side there. But this is like a figure dedicated to that image. And you can see on the package itself, you have a representation of each one of the characters from the original movie. So this is really just like an A New Hope set. But we'll get them out of the package and take a look at them individually in just a second. Hey again, I just wanted to let you guys see, these are what the figures look like on the card, and they are gorgeous. The Walrus Man is the only one that was one of the original figures, and he's just basically they scanned the original figure and made a mold with it. But it's the original artwork that was on the package, which I always remember. His was so strange because it was like an airbrush painting of the character instead of a photograph. And they kept that, and I'm glad they did because it feels authentic. I almost don't want to open this one. But they look great, and I just wanted to show you the stickers on these are removable, and if you're very careful, you can remove them without, you know, tearing any of it off. But they come off pretty easily. So if you want them to look like real deal toys, I mean, they're never going to be, you're not going to be able to fool people with these because they do have the simulated wear and tear on the packages and other little things that let you know. Like the the warning stickers are different than the ones back in the day. And I think the age thing is different because if I remember, when I was a kid, the age thing was like written across here. And also I think the warning and all, anything like that was on there. If it had that, I can't, it's been so long. But yeah, I just wanted to show you these on the card before I remove them. But anyway, I'll be back in a minute. Here we are again, back with the retro collection Star Wars figures 6-pack. All of these characters from A New Hope, and they're all really nice. Like I said before, the only one that's a repeat, it's a figure that we've had before, is Walrus Man from the original vintage Kenner toy line. The rest of these are all new. One of them, I believe, is kind of using an old sculpt, the old Stormtrooper body. I might be wrong. Although this one looks a little bit more like the old. Maybe they reused parts from different things. I'm not sure. But I know the helmet is a lot like the helmet that came with the Luke Skywalker. But let's take a look at these. One thing I got to say about these, if you've been collecting the retro figure line, all of these guys do something that a lot of the retro figures can't do, and that's hold their weapons. That's one problem I've had with them. I don't know whether it's just poor designs or the kind of warped nature of doing the scan of the figures. It's something that they should have kind of tweaked, and it looks like they've learned from their mistakes in the past. But all these guys can hold their weapons. Now, not all of them can hold them straight. Like you see the Rebel Fleet Trooper, his gun's kind of held to the side like that. But even back in the vintage Kenner Star Wars line, there were some figures that had kind of a tough time keeping the gun straight. They'd hold them, but it wasn't exactly straight. But let's take a look at Walrus Man. One of my favorites out of the set, because I had a Walrus Man when I was a kid, and I haven't had one since I was a kid. So it's nice getting to see him again. I always thought he was a really cool looking figure. I love the colors on the Cantina aliens. They never really matched up with what the Cantina aliens were wearing, or, you know, what they looked like in the movies. They were a little bit, they kind of took some liberties with them. But one thing they got right is the old baby butt face Walrus Man. It looks like he's given birth to a baby, like butt first out of his mouth. Or it just looks like he's got a baby's butt sitting there. I don't know. It's kind of disturbing. But anyway, it's a cool figure. He's, you know, I'm not really going to go through the articulation on all these guys because it's real easy. This is where the term 5 points of articulation comes from, is these type of figures where it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So it's the hips, the shoulders, and the neck. And that was all you got back in the day. And that's all you needed, because back then, imagination was everything. So when I have a figure holding up a gun like this, it's like, you know, he's got his limbs all bent up in action poses in my mind. So, yep. They made more articulated Star Wars figures, but that's not what this is really about. This is about looking like the toys that I had when I was a kid. So Walrus Man, the one thing about Walrus Man, the rest of these figures stand just fine. Walrus Man has a tendency to topple over backwards. There's something about the ankles, the way that they were cast or whatever. They're sort of at an angle. They're not quite straight. He would benefit from a figure stand, definitely. So what I kind of do is I tend to put his arms a little bit forward, and that seems to keep him fairly straight. Dr. Evazan, he's the "he doesn't like you" guy. And then when you say, "I'm sorry, I'll be more careful," or whatever, he's like, "and I don't like you either. I've got the death mark on 12 or 13 systems, whatever." The guy's a jerk. But he's cool because the way they sculpted his face, he's not pretty at all, which the character wasn't pretty. And it's really good. It's a good little sculpt. I like how they kind of subdued the sculpts to make them look a little bit more like the vintage figures. But at the same time, they're nicely detailed. He's a nice looking figure. Got his little pouch on the back of his belt there. He comes with 2 guns for some reason. I don't recall him having 2 guns, but then you only see him for like a few seconds in the movie before Obi-Wan Kenobi runs him off after cutting Walrus Man's hand off. But he comes with a gun that is, it really looks like the gun that's laying on the ground next to Walrus Man's hand. So I don't know if that's supposed to be for Walrus Man or what, maybe. I don't know. Didn't think about that. But anyway, it came packed with him. And he comes with this other gun that's kind of just a generic laser gun type thing. So there's that. I like that he's all disheveled and he just looks kind of sloppy. He looks like he would smell. Yep. Seems like the kind of guy that would hang out at that bar. All right. Now this is, like I said before, this is one of the figures that I wanted. This is one of the figures that I wanted the most, the Sand Trooper, from the scene in the first Star Wars where they're on Tatooine looking for the droids. And he's really nice. He's one of the, like, both of the stormtroopers in this set have a bent arm, and it may be because they each have longer rifles, and they can hold them, you know, kind of down at their side without the guns being too long. Like if you were to put the gun in this arm, like back in the day, most of the Star Wars figures had straight arms. Every once in a while you get one with kind of a bent arm, but when you hold the gun down at his side, it goes, you know, you can't really stand up too well with the gun pointing down. But what's nice is you can plug it into this hand and he can kind of have his arm down and you can still stand him up. What's cool is instead of having like an extra piece for the pauldron there, it's actually sculpted into the arm and it turns there. All right, that was my cat going nuts. And his little ammo pouch fits on this arm. And it feels like the head should turn, but it doesn't. It's stuck in place. I'm not going to push it any further than that. He has a nice, really compact backpack. Anybody that knows anything about the actual proportions of the backpack, it was much bigger on their backs, but I like that. It's a really nice looking job they did there, and I'm very happy with that figure. Now, the next is something I didn't ever expect to see, because the only time I've ever seen this figure is when people custom make it. In the, I think I mentioned it before, the Power of the Force line, which was the last toy line that they did back in the 80s with the original Star Wars stuff. They had a Luke Skywalker in Stormtrooper disguise, and you can see here, which you saw before when I was showing them carded, this is Han Solo with the disguise, and it's a nice, you know, soft vinyl helmet that really fits on his head pretty well. And because it fits on a head, it can turn. So this and the Luke Skywalker were the only stormtroopers back in the original line that you could turn their heads. Now, the scout troopers, you could turn their heads. I'm trying to remember. Not necessarily stormtroopers. They were definitely part of the Imperial forces. No, those didn't turn either. I don't think the AT-AT driver head turned. And I'm pretty sure the TIE Fighter pilot helmet didn't turn. So of all the stormtrooper guys, the only one back in the day that could turn his head was the Luke Skywalker in the disguise. But now you got Han Solo that can do the same. And he comes with one of the long Imperial rifles and the regular blaster. And he's really nice. It's a nice, clean figure. And that's another one that I'm really happy to add to my collection. My little retro figure collection is growing steadily. And this is the Rebel Fleet Trooper. Did I say Rebel collection or retro? It's retro collection. This is the Rebel Fleet Trooper. And he's really nice. I mean, he looks just like the guys looked in the movie that were in the blockade runner running from Darth Vader. And if you go further out, you could say that they're the guys from Rogue One that were running through, because they're supposed to be the same guys. But he's really nice. I love the design, which I always like the design of these guys anyway, with that strange helmet with the little blast shield. And this guy appears to be bald because there's no hair back there. And the gun is just the standard Rebel gun. Like the Hoth Rebel Troopers came with those guns, and several other Rebel characters had those. So that's the default Rebel gun there. And he's nice with the little pouches and everything on him. Just a really sweet looking, really nice, clean figure. And finally, but definitely not the least of these, is the Luke Skywalker in his, I just always figure it was like a Rebel commando outfit or something, Rebel adventure, whatever you want to call it. On the package, it calls it Yavin. It doesn't say Yavin outfit. I think it just says Yavin. Hold on. I've got the cards here. Where are you, boy? Luke Skywalker, Yavin. Okay. So this is the way he looked at the end of A New Hope, where he's been given the award by Princess Leia. And they gave him Princess Leia's pistol. I'm not sure. Let me see. It doesn't really show what kind of pistol he has on the card. There's a picture from the card. But I really like this figure a lot. It feels just like one of the figures that would have been back in the day. Because it seems like every time they did an iteration of Luke, his face looked a little different on the figures. And this is no different whatsoever. It's a nice head. I like his mod hair. It feels very of the time. And I love the outfit. It's sort of like he's wearing like the Corellian pants. Makes me wonder if like he got these clothes out of Han Solo's locker on the Millennium Falcon. It just seems like it because it's got the Corellian stripe on it, although it's not the blood stripe like Han Solo. But I love this figure. It's a little, the feet are a little wonky on it. Like they're kind of big and chunky and, you know, elephant-like, but still, I don't care. I've wanted this type of Luke Skywalker figure ever since I was a kid. Because like I said before, when you first got Luke Skywalker, all he had was his little moisture farmer pajamas that he ran around in, his little karate outfit. And it was nice because at the end of Star Wars, he's pictured with the jacket and all. So he looks kind of like an adventurer like Han Solo. And we never got the figure. Because the second figure they made of Luke Skywalker was him in the pilot outfit. And so, you know, that was good and all, but it's like, when are we going to get him in this outfit? And we never did, but now we have him. And he really looks like he fits in with the old vintage Star Wars figures. So, needless to say, I'm very happy with these. They are at Target right now. Let's see, what was it? The sets, I know the sets originally retailed for like $60, which is... This is good because most of the retro figures are like $10 a piece. So, you know, well, unless they've raised the prices again, but they were running around $10 a piece. And that's what these are. They're like $10 a piece. But that's at retail, the regular retail. They were like $59.99, I think. And at Target right now, they've got them on clearance for $17.99. And I could not pass that up because these are figures that I've been wanting for a long time. All of these are figures I wanted. Well, maybe not Dr. Evazan because really that guy was a jerk. But everybody else, it's stuff that, you know, we've been wanting. And it's nice to have a Walrus Man again after all these years. So take a look at Target, see if you can find them, and good luck on your hunt, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.